Finding a percent of a number. When I want to find a percent of a number, and let's say we want to find 60% of 75, what I need to remember is that percent is per hundred. So 60% is saying the same thing as 60 out of 100, or 60 hundredths. So when I want to find a percent of a number, first I want to use the fraction form of the percent, or the ratio of the percent. And then I want to simplify that. So 60 over 100, well, if I divide the top, or the numerator, and the denominator by 10, 60 divided by 10 is 6, and 100 divided by 10 is 10. That'll give me an equivalent fraction, and then I can simplify that further by dividing the top, or the numerator, by 2, and the bottom, or the denominator, by 2. And I get 6 divided by 2, which is 3, and then 10 divided by 2, which is 5. So 60% is the same thing, is equivalent to 3/5. Okay, so I'm really saying I want 3/5 of 75. Saying 60% of 75 is saying the same thing as 3/5 of 75. And then it turns into a multiplication problem because the word of is going to mean multiplication. So 3/5 of 75 can be written as 3/5 times 75. And you can write 75 as a fraction as well. It would just be 75 over 1. And there's a couple ways we can do this. We can multiply straight across, or we can simplify before we multiply. And the way we do that is we see that there's a couple compatible numbers. 75 and 5 are both divisible by 5. So if we divide both of those by 5, well, 5 divided by 5 is 1. And then 75 divided by 5, 75 divided by 5 would give you, well, 1 goes in, or 5 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 5 is 5. 7 minus 5 is 2. Then you bring down the other 5. And 5 goes into 25 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25. And you have a remainder of 0. So 75 divided by 5 leaves you 15. So if you simplify before you multiply, now you have 3 times 15, which is going to give you 45. And 1 times 1 just gives you 1. So 45 over 1, that's the same thing as saying 45. So you have 3/5 of 75, which is 45. So the answer to our original problem, 60% of 75, is going to be 45. Because 60% is the same thing as 3/5, and then we just do 3/5 of 75. So 3/5 times 75. And we'll get that answer, 45. Let's say we want to find 20% of 80. Okay, remember 20% can be written as a fraction, 20 over 100, and then that can be simplified. 20 is divisible by 20, and so is 100, so you can divide the top by 20 and the bottom by 20. The numerator and the denominator, divide both of them by 20, and you get, well, 20 divided by 20 is 1, and then 100 divided by 20 is 5. So 20% is the same thing. 20% is the same thing as 1/5. So we really want to take 1/5 of 80, and the way we do that is we multiply 1/5 times 80, and we can rewrite 80 as a fraction as 80 over 1. And now we can either multiply straight across and then simplify. And let's do it that way this time. So 1 times 80 is 80. And then 5 times 1 is 5. So now we have 80 over 5. And we can simplify that by dividing the numerator and the denominator by 5. And the denominator is easy. 5 divided by 5 is 1. And then 80 divided by 5 80 divided by 5. 5 goes into 8 one time. 8 minus 5 is 3. Bring down the 0. And 5 goes into 30 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30. 30 minus 30 is 0, so you don't have a remainder. So your numerator is going to be 16. 80 divided by 5 is 16. And 16 over 1 is the same thing as 16. So that's our answer. We have 20% of 80 is 16. And that's all you have to do to take a percentage of a number.